All right, due to the absence of a chair, we will open the meeting. And due to the absence of the chair, we need to select a chair. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Mr. McCarty.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second to nominate Mr. McCarty to be the chairman or the acting chair of the combined planning commission and zoning board appeals for the village of Antioch. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Motion carries. Congratulations, sir. You are the chair.
Call the meeting to order and stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Roll call. She is not here, of course. So, Mr. Ryan? Here. Sam Football.
Here.
Mr. McCarty here. Ms. Kirstensen?
Here.
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 And here, there we have it. All right. The only two that are missing is Henning and Turner. Okay, announcements and correspondence. Okay. Approval of the August 2nd, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board minutes as presented. Everybody get a chance to review those?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Motion made. Seconded. Any discussion? Okay. Mr. Ryan? Yes. Sam Popo?
Yes.
Ms. Carson?
Yes.
And Wayne? Hannigan? Yes.
Yes.
Mr. McCarty, yes. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I'll put on the record, with your okay, that there's no one here signed up for public.
Okay. Old business. PZB 2204, consideration of site plan review for Ash Palette Management LLC for the property commonly known as 710 Anita Avenue.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let the record reflect this is a concept. This is a site plan review for the property commonly known as 710. The property applicant's name is Ash Palette. The case is number 2204. The current property, as we speak, is zone M1, which is light industrial. The village's comp plan is village residential. As you recall, back in May 2022, the applicant came before you back in May 2022. There was extensive discussion for this proposed site plan. As you recall, a number of years ago, the applicant did come before this planning commission for a concept for multifamily. The planning commission at that point did recommend approval, but the village board did reject that application. So after further discussion and consideration, the applicant, as you know, owns the property. There's an existing property or a building commonly known as 710 Anita, which is part of the applicant's corporation. The applicant, as part of their proposal, has a new light industrial use. Specifically, what they're proposing is to construct a parking facility for their transportation portion of their corporation, specifically Ash Palette. They do have a transportation company, which is used for their pallet company. They park their trucks, and I'll perhaps allow Mr. Christensen and council to specifically outline their actual business plan as it relates to their transportation and truck needs, but they do have some challenges with regards to storing trailers right now on their existing campus over in McMillan. So what they're proposing, what's before you this evening, is a proposed parking facility, which will be ancillary to their existing building on approximately 6 acres. So the applicant, again, is coming for you this evening. I strike that in approximately 8 acres. So I'll talk a little bit about the context first. As you know, whenever looking at any type of use, it's important to look at surrounding uses. So to the east of this property is an existing village park and multifamily. To the south of this area is a property that is zoned industrial, which has 2 small industrial buildings. And to the north of this property is the existing industrial building 710 Anita, which is owned by Ash Pallet. And to the west is the Canadian National Railroad. So the property's buffered by the Canadian Railroad on the west side and light industrial on the south. Across the street, there's an apartment complex, Anita Apartments, in our village-owned park to the east. As you can see, the site plan behind me, the applicant is proposing on a 1 main access point, new access point. Actually, they use existing access point, which services Anita, the Anita facility at 710. As you know, there is a main access point right now, which services that industrial building to the north, as you can see behind me. As you can also look at, the most obviously prominent feature about the site is the extensive amount of wetlands. The majority of this property is actually wetlands. If you actually look at the applicant's site plan, you can see that only a small portion, approximately, of the approximate balance of the property is going to be proposed to be used for an actual parking of the truck trailers. The vast majority of the property will be actually set aside and not disturbed because it's existing wetlands. You can tell by the applicant's proposal, there's extensive wetland buffers in accordance with local, state statutes and Army Corps regulations as it relates to those buffer requirements. So I'll allow Mr. Christensen to kind of walk you through those wetlands and some of the constraints as it relates to this property itself. The actual proposed main access point is the actual drive area is approximately 24 feet wide. There would be a crossing through wetlands, and I'm going to allow Mr. Christensen to outline the permits that would be required to cross those wetlands. But there's the one area, that small portion where the wetlands could potentially be disturbed, is that 24-foot wide roadway, which provides a main access into the parking area. Directing your attention to the actual parking area for the trucks, there would be 48 spaces for this overall proposal itself. These spaces, again, are 11 by 50, but they would generally be appropriate in size for parking of trailers. With respect to the other aspects of this property, again, as I've already outlined, all the property within the wetlands and the extensive existing shrubs and trees that surround the perimeter of this property, specifically along Anita, would not be disturbed. So there'll be a natural buffering along Anita and also along the property, the southern perimeter of the property itself. As you well know, there's an existing park and multifamily to the east. So based on those 2 non-industrial uses, it's imperative that that this property will be fully screened and that be not visible throughout the year from Anita. So I'll allow the applicant to outline their proposal as it relates to landscaping. But because of the proposed intensity of the proposed use, staff has requested some modifications to the landscape plan or some additional landscaping to try to mitigate any type of negative impact on those multifamily apartments. And also, more importantly, the existing village park, Centennial Park, which is located on Anita just to the east of the site. As I've already highlighted, the applicant is not proposing to remove any existing trees or shrubs or growth that is located throughout the site. More importantly, they're not proposing to disturb the existing wetlands, which make up the vast majority of this property. As you all know, in accordance with the Lake County Watershed Ordinance, the applicant has to comply with the 100-foot buffers from any proposed improvements for the wetland areas. So the applicant will have to comply with all local, state, and federal regulations as it requires wetlands on this proposed property. And again, I'm going to allow the applicant to specifically propose or outline those buffers and what is specifically being done to ensure that there's no negative impact from this proposed parking lot on the existing wetlands that surround this property itself. The applicant has come back with a revised landscape plan, as you can see, based on some of the comments that were discussed back in 2022 from the Planning Commission. Additional landscaping has been added to the overall site plan. Specifically, the applicant has added 22 shade trees, or 21 evergreen trees on the proposed site. In addition, staff is giving the applicant credit for the existing landscaping. As I've outlined several times, all the existing landscaping on the subject site is being preserved. There'll be no removal of the existing trees or shrubs. At least during the warm months of the year, this site will, or this proposed parking lot and the parking of trailers should be fully screened. It should not be visible from actual Anita Street. Now, because of some of the natural constraints of this proposed property, again, staff did request this in our original staff report, and we request this again. We do believe there's some opportunities to incorporate some best management practices within the parking lot, whether those are bioswales or something to basically mitigate any potential negative impact on the wetlands. Because there is a proposed impervious surface, i.e. asphalt parking lot, in view of the fact there will be trucks on this property, in view of the fact there will be trailers, there is the potential to have some type of negative effluence or some type of a negative impact on the wetlands. So in addition to the actual buffer, wetland buffers, we also think there is an opportunity to incorporate some best management practices for what we call a treatment train, just in case there is any negative potential impact on those wetlands as a result of any type of additional truck traffic or any other vehicles. There will be vehicles on the site, obviously employees. So we think there's an opportunity to incorporate some BMPs on the site, and that's one of the added stipulations that we added. In addition to, as it relates to buffering, we did request, I think several commissioners did request some additional evergreen trees be planted along Anita Street to, again, mitigate or negate any type of visibility from the park or the multifamily homes on Anita. In addition to the actual natural landscape that I've talked about, you can see on the plan before me, the applicant actually is incorporating a privacy perimeter fence. Majority of that perimeter fence will be basically a chain link with screens, but a large portion of it will be actually a stockade wood fence. So there's two different types of fences, but both at a minimum will provide a screen around the proposed parking lot area, in addition to the proposed additional landscaping, in addition to the existing landscaping. So there's almost like 3 tiers of screening on this property to mitigate any negative impact from our park to the east and also the residential component located on Anita. So I've outlined what screening is. Again, it'll be an 8-foot wood fence along with the other chain link fence, which will be fully screened with either a fabric or a chain link or a material that will provide 100% opacity. So that will be, that outlines the screening as proposed, as part of this proposed site. As you recall, one of the major loose ends at the last meeting was, I think there was some discussion about where the stormwater was going to, what potential impact it would have on the wetlands. And also specifically a request for a topo. As you can actually see that the applicant within their actual plan has a topo plan which shows the contours of the property, which generally shows the overall pattern of water where stormwater is being drained to. As you can see within this overall plan, there are a series of retention ponds which will be planted with natural planting material, which will provide a more of a naturalistic approach for stormwater overall the site, which again should help. It's really also a part of what we call best management practices. It provides that treatment train of stormwater, again, to provide a cleansing of any potential contamination in any stormwater, which would result from either the trucks or trailers or vehicles on the subject site. So with those retention ponds, with the potential of adding some additional BMPs within the parking lot, we think there's really a minimum potential for any type of contamination or any negative impact on the existing wetlands that surround this site. So I've already outlined the proposed stormwater of this proposed site. The applicant has submitted a volumetric plan for this overall site. It does comply with the village's minimum requirements as it relates to the foot candle illumination. No foot candle on this proposed property will exceed the half-foot candle illumination level that's required by village ordinance. In accordance with the village's ordinance, all the proposed light fixtures are box configurations directed at 90 degrees down, which will comply with the village's fixture requirements. There is also, as you can see in the overall site plan, a proposed maintenance building. You can see the applicant's proposing a 5,200 square foot maintenance building. That would be phase 2 of the site plan. So the applicant would be required to come back before the planning commission. Once they have final designs on that maintenance building, that would be phase 2 of the site plan. So what you are not approving this evening is you're not approving the maintenance building, but just for as a courtesy, the actual location of that building is shown on the overall plans. And for the record, the applicant would be required to come back before this plan commission for the proposed facility itself before they could construct the maintenance building. So in conclusion, while staff does continue to have some concerns, whether this is really the highest and best use of the property, we have some reservations whether it's highest and best use, but reviewing the overall plan, it appears that the applicant has met the minimum requirements of the village's site plan review ordinance. The property is zoned, again, light industrial. This proposed parking facility will be ancillary to the existing light industrial use at 710 Main Street, Anita. And therefore, this evening, we are in a position to make a recommendation for approval of this overall project with the 4 outlined stipulations in my staff report. So with that, I'll conclude my staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Gargan. Was this posted or is this just a continuation from previously?
Again, this is a site plan. This is
Review.
it's a site plan. It's not a public hearing. There's no special use here. There's no rezoning. There's no variance. So therefore, it was not posted. No legal requirements are with regards to notices required in this case.
Okay. Mr. Ryan?
No, I have no questions at this time.
Ms. Sanfilippo?
So the large area luminaire that was in the packet, where are those going?
I'm sorry, please say it again.
Like we got the lighting, examples of the
Yes.
lighting. So it's like a large area luminaire. Are
Right.
those going in on the site somewhere?
There's lighting standards proposed, but I'm going to allow Mr. Christensen. I want to introduce Glenn Christensen, who is designer, landscape architect, and also counsel for the applicant, who are both here. So I think they can maybe provide some additional information,
Okay.
specifically as it relates to the lighting and more importantly, the buffering and what specifically is going to be completed to mitigate any potential negative impact on the
Okay.
wetlands. The
Yeah.
reason why I keep bringing it up is that my recollections, we had a very healthy discussion last time this was considered by the planning commission about any potential impact about the wetlands and stormwater. So with that, I'm going to introduce Mr. Christensen.
Thank you. And my name's Glenn Christensen. And I'm here with Cindy Rios, who's with Ash Palette, and Jim Babowitz, who's the attorney for representing Ash Palette. Yeah, we were back here a while ago. In fact, it was June 1st, 2022 was the hearing. And we were requested to go back and provide some other items in this site plan review. We did that. We had one if you recall, we had a stumbling block about the topography. This really kind of started with the village allowing us to go on site and clear the area where it's going to be developed to shoot fresh topography. And that was a conflict. The staff didn't really want that to happen until they had site plan review. So we were kind of in a catch-22. After some discussions, they allowed us to use the topography from the Lake County GIS system to develop the preliminary engineering, which Manhart Consulting did it for us. And we proceeded on. So we did preliminary engineering, which was requested. We revised the landscape plan, and we completed a photometrics plan as requested. And that was submitted in January of this year. We also deposited a $10,000 escrow payment in April. That was requested. And now we're here finally on the agenda, and hopefully we can proceed with this project. And I think we've accomplished a lot of the work that was requested. And not to rehash a lot of things that Mike said, he was pretty complete with his description. We will be back in phase 2 with the building. Once the project gets going, we will hire an architect and do the necessary work there to come back to have you review the building that we're proposing to build there as well. As far as the wetlands, as previously, we had it delineated. We had the boundaries approved by the Army Corps of Engineers. Manhart Consulting designed the preliminary stormwater to go into 4 separate ponds on the site. Those ponds will be done as a best management practice. They will serve basically as a bioswale. Stormwater now, there's 3 functions in stormwater. One is to immediately catch the water, control it, so you have a controlled rate of release. The second is to allow the water to remain on site, allow that water to percolate back into the soil as much as possible. And that's done with the ponds. And the third is to try to cleanse that water before it leaves the site and enters the drainage system within the village. And we'll be able to accomplish that in those 4 separate ponds that are there. We'll have to accomplish that. The preliminary site engineering, which was submitted, we did Manhart Consulting did a preliminary grading plan and drainage plan, as well as a preliminary utility plan. And those plans will be reviewed by the village and be utilized when we get into final engineering and final plans. Photometrics plan was completed. Photometric plans are kind of hard to read, but essentially we will have 0 foot candles almost halfway into the site. As Mike indicated, the requirement is 0.5 foot candles at the property line. We won't even come close to that. The only point that there will be any lighting of any substantial foot candles at the property line will be at the driveway entrance. That being said, we've used a lighting fixture. LED lights are great now. They're easy to control. They're small, and they're designed very well. The light poles will not exceed the 30-foot high maximum. They'll be of a black finish. There'll be photo controls on the lighting, photo cell for light and for dark and light. This particular model, the control will have lights that'll dim down 50 to 30% at night. And the lights will have a motion sensor if someone should come into the site while those lights are dim, go on for a while, and then after that motion leaves, they will dim back down to 30 to 50%. So there'll be limited visibility of any lighting whatsoever. The landscape plan. Okay, can I run over there? Okay. Essentially, the majority of the landscaping will be along this area right here on the back of the stormwater detention ponds that face the park and face the apartment park. We've got, I believe, 22 or 21 evergreens through here, 12-foot centers planted. And behind that, along this edge here of the pond, will be an 8-foot fence. Now, this 8-foot fence on the preliminary engineering is going to be about 4 feet. The base of that is going to be about 4 feet below the grade of the Avenue. So at this point, that fence will be, the top of this fence will be 12 feet above the Avenue. So that fence alone, I think, screens almost 100%. Based on that, plus these evergreens as they grow, plus the existing plant material screen that's substantial. Anybody seen this from the driveway, that, you know, comes in, meanders through this. The two wetland crossings, there's one here, one here. Those are the minimum distances. It shows that location because it's only about 10 or 12 feet wide. We in fact may be able to bridge over those. Landscape, I know there's a recommendation by staff that keep evergreen plantings along Anita Avenue. We'll look at that. We'll go over there just before the meeting. And we've got Anita Avenue, gravel shoulder and sidewalk. And about 1 or 2 feet after that, it dips down. So it's going to be very difficult to get evergreen plantings in there. But when we get the final topography and everything, we'll look at that and we'll walk the site with the staff and see if we can't work something out there.
So the large area luminaires, you said they were 30 feet?
Yeah.
Cause I thought I saw something in here that said they were 40 feet, but maybe,
It should be 30,
okay.
unless
And-
that was a catalog. cut
and
they
where
get
are-
different models.
Where are those planned to go? Or will those be throughout the like parking area, or are they to go like where the proposed building is? Where
Yeah,
are
they will,
those?
well, they serve the parking.
Well, it's just, these are the lighting, this is the lighting plan here, and it's hard to read.
Okay,
Yeah, it's hard. But they'll be on the periphery of the parking.
okay,
Shine down, and there'll be a few along the drive.
okay,
To the back here, on the back. side.
okay. I see now.
Here. Yeah, up the-
I guess I got a question, Mr. Chair. So the Joint Commission asked for evergreens to be planted on the eastern boundary of the property. Is that correct, sir?
Well, they said they wanted the screening on the eastern side.
Right, but
Screen things from the eastern side of the property.
right, but wasn't there a specific request that evergreens be planted there?
I didn't hear a specific request. I think
Mike, am I,
discussions were that to look at that. And I think it would be better served by the landscape plan that we did.
Mike, was that a specific request of the commission? If the commission asked for 1 or 2 things, just want to make sure that's addressed. Was that in there or no? I thought there was mention of evergreen.
My recollection is there was a discussion about adding evergreens along Anita
Okay,
Avenue.
okay.
Obviously, there was no recommendation for approval or some
Right.
recommendation, but that based on staff specifically incorporated that in the staff report based on my recollection that there was a discussion in June of 2022 about adding evergreens. If any other commissioner wants to refresh my memory, that was my recollection.
That's what I remember. Now, obviously, if the topography drops off so rapidly there, it's harder to accomplish that with the wetlands so close to everything around it.
And even evergreen plantings that close to the road with salt spray and that, it's not a very good idea. It would be within the right of way too, by the way, so. And I don't think you allow evergreens in the right of way plantings. I don't.
That would be past the right of way, wouldn't it? The right of way
I
ends
don't
about
think
at the sidewalk? Yeah. Because the sidewalk ends your right of way.
I don't think so in that location because the area was so tight. But we'll find that out when we do the final. I mean, we're willing to work with it, but if I was to say today it'd be, you couldn't do it.
Right, but I mean, if my commission asks for one thing, I just want to make sure that it's at least vetted. I think that's a fair request.
Okay.
Anything else, Ms. Lynn?
So the areas that we are crossing the wetlands, will those be bridged or not?
I don't know. I don't know how they will do that, whether they will pipe it or bridge it, but that will be obviously a permitting process. Manhart Consulting will carry that through during the final engineering. So.
Okay, that's all I had, Mr. McCarthy.
Scarsonson.
I think you guys did a really good job listening and coming back, so I appreciate the hard work. Michael, you and staff too. I'm still super concerned about that crosswalk there. I use that crosswalk and there's no sign, so I don't know if that's a village thing or, you know, this, if there's gonna be semis
Off of Anita,
off of Anita,
running in, yeah.
no one sees anybody in that crosswalk and semis are a bigger problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very dramatic problem. I mean, that could be a condition upon this as well. I'm sure that petitioner and Michael would be fine with conditioning it on this.
Well, you know, I think
Some
that's
form of
something,
sign.
you know, the village, you know, could put crosswalk signs up. There's the, you know, the flashing lights that say crosswalk. I think people are more vigilant about crosswalks now.
Right, but you
Sign.
guys are coming in there asking for the relief, and then you want us to bear the cost of it.
Not necessarily.
Okay, because you said the village.
But we can't put signs up.
No, but you could, there could be an arrangement where if there was a reimbursement and or some signage on your property to offset the concerns and alleviate the concerns of this commission with regards to a semi versus a person out there, I think it's a reasonable request. And I don't know if council has a thought on that or no. Correct.
But in terms of, again, but I think that relative, all the time, I think that Glenn said, just like, for example, the evergreen, relative to, Commissioner McCarty, you talked about recognition.
Sure.
Those are the couple of things that, you know, we'll have to examine. I don't see an issue with that.
No.
You know, having those discussions, you know, I don't see that.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
Ms. Madigan?
Yeah, quite a few questions. Okay, so the property, you currently own that property over there. There's currently a building on that property that is also owned by Ash,
To the north.
and you currently use that property, or is that building vacant? But you believe you will in the future then? And then also I know that was just mentioned just as a FYI, and there's more that will have to come from it, but the actual proposed building will be, and what will that be used for? I mean, what are you projecting that will be used for? Okay. 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 Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure.
It kind of works with all the properties.
Okay.
I mean, she's right. And what this will do is take away a lot of the clutter and the movement at their existing facility and allow that to be cleaned up. And they bought additional property next to their existing facility. So they're going to come back probably with a master plan for that piece of property too, and get that straightened out and make it look.
Okay.
But this allows them that they're tight now. They've been very successful. And they're bulging at the seams, and this is one way to eliminate that. So,
And if memory serves me right, I haven't been back in that area in a couple of weeks, but on McMillan, you also have a storage spot across from Raymond Auto Collision. Is that yours as well or no? Not on,
No, it's
The
about a
south
block, it's
side.
one a block down on the curb where you
Yeah.
have the trucks. There's
Right.
trucks there now.
oh,
Yeah.
I don't know the exact address.
Yeah,
I'm
that-
sorry.
that'd
I
be
know it's
right.
just, it's across. Maybe.
It's just to the
Yeah,
west.
they have that one. Yeah.
It's just to the west of the auto body,
Okay.
location on the corner. That used to be the aluminum, scaffold building.
So that is yours as well? Owned or owned? Okay, all right. Yeah, you guys are. And then also, will you have trucks coming in and out of this proposed property at all hours? Will there be set hours? Cause like you said, I understand the lights will go on, they're gonna be motion sensitive and they'll dim and so forth, but you know, is that something that you think will happen on a regular basis? You know, not a 9 to 5, obviously, but you know.
Yeah, you know, and I don't want to speak for Anthony, but I think there'll be some late night drop offs. The whole idea is that you can drop off an empty one, go get a loaded one, and then go. You know, that type of thing. So that but
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I'm having a little hard time hearing you, so if you could please come up to the mic and.
I do apologize. I am aware I have a soft voice.
That's okay.
All right.
What would you like me to repeat or is
No, that's fine for right now.
Okay, and then, also, so back to your concern about the crosswalk. Currently, when there's ball games at Centennial Park, people park on both sides of the road, which also makes it a concern because if a truck is trying to pull in to a driveway there, it may get a little tight because of parking there.
So for the most part, from what I've experienced in the area, most of the games do occur during the weekends. For the most part, we do try to stay between Monday through Friday. We do have Saturday operations, but that does tend to cease around 11. And for the most part, there is no movement past. There is operations currently, but it doesn't involve freight.
Okay.
Do you run 1, 2, or 3 shifts?
We run 2 shifts.
2 shifts. So
Full
first
on.
shift is from
5 to 4,
5 to 4.
5 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay, and the second shift?
Second shift is 4 p.m. to, it really depends on the time of the year. For the most part, it is 2 a.m. It will run up to 4 p.m. 4 a.m. I'm sorry, if needed.
So almost 24 hours,
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday.
And Ms. Mackin, to answer, I know you said mostly the games are on the weekend, but they do have quite a few games during the week.
They
I
do.
mean, my daughter played softball there and there's quite a few teams that do play, you know, after school, early evening, obviously before dark. But, so I, you know, would second Ms. Carsonson's, think the crosswalks, good idea.
Anything else, Mrs. Megan?
if I may make a comment on the trucks too, turn in there, we're gonna have a full radius on that entrance truck, so we're not gonna have to go outside. And again, we'll work with staff when we get a little closer on the final entering. We'll work with them involved with the crosswalk, and if there's some parking issues, we may, you know, ask or recommend to make some signage out there for that.
My only other comment is 2 comments, I guess. One is, again, someone else on the board said it, but I mean, it's nice that you guys came back, you took our suggestions, and you are taking the whole, you know, our concerns about the wetland furious. It does raise more of a concern for me, knowing that there's gonna be a maintenance building on the property. Because with maintenance, you know, trucks, you got tires, you got bearings, you got all kinds, you know, brakes, all that, you got fluids and oils and, you know,
Yeah, and
lube and all that, so.
and with the building, I mean, we'll be back with plans for that, but the building codes for a service building like that are pretty strict.
Mhm.
Triple basins, clean, that type of
Yeah,
thing, and
yeah.
it's gonna be pretty costly to do that in that location, so we'll have our handheld on that one, no question, so.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, for Ash Palette, quite one question. There's a trailer on your property just north of there. On the north side of that building. That's been sitting there for quite some time. That's on its side.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on its side. Literally.
As far as that, I am not necessarily privy to what's actually inside of that. That's more towards the actual owner. However, I do know that they are currently in the process of removing it.
Okay. It's been there for quite some time.
I do agree.
And-
I know that in the past we have had other trailer storage. We have now removed that. As
Eh.
far as in the actual 710 area, there won't be any trailer storage from here on out.
Okay. As a note, I mean, this is a pretty sensitive area and, obviously you're going to have to go through quite a few hurdles with all the wetlands and other things, but a good steward to the neighborhood would be very prudent, and having a trailer on its side for almost a year would be not a good thing to continue to see or have happen.
Yeah.
So, otherwise, all the other comments were pretty fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In our audience, we do have the fire protection chief, the fire protection district chief. And I would never put him on the spot, but but
Oh, we are.
nothing matters before the but. Have you been in contact? Obviously, you'll have to go through code and review on inspections, but have you been on contact with the applicant for their for this aspect of it? I know it's early, and I know it's I know there's additional review that needs to be undertaken, but when I hear turning radiuses for trucks, I immediately think of fire protection engines coming through. When I hear pallets and storage and trailers for that, I immediately think of fire because there's wood. Has there been some sort of coordination? Should it come down later? Is it a premature question to ask? And will you accept my apology for putting you on the spot? I don't need an answer right now necessarily, but you're here, they're here, we're talking about it. It might just be a time to address it.
I do want to add,
I've been involved in that since 2015 and yet to get compliance there.
that's currently not true. We were
We're not talking about the litigation here. We're not talking about the litigation here, but the fire chief's here, so it's a germane question to ask if there've been contact with it.
fire, equipment get into the site. And when you want to talk about within the site, the crash planes and things like that. I think those
Yeah.
those are the
That's the
issues.
germane issues, yeah.
Those are the issues.
I think, just the fact that this is a truck and trailer storage area, I think, with 50-foot stalls and 60-foot aisles, I think any fire truck that Antioch has can make it through there all right with any problem. But at final engineering, if there's some question about that, we can put the plan through auto turn with any piece of equipment they have, and we'll run it through. So, but I don't see any issues. I think you'll be able to get anything through this parking area and driveway.
Mr. Garrigan, what are you looking for from the commission tonight? We've gone over quite a bit.
Yes, I am looking for if the commission is comfortable with moving this case as it relates to this proposed site plan for the parking facility, moving it forward with a favorable recommendation with actually, there's now 5 stipulations. I did add the other stipulation, developer add crosswalks or at least pay for it with working with staff on that. So the applicant would be responsible for the cost of that crosswalk signage.
What are the other,
at
what are the other 4?
The other one was basically compliance with the requirements of the village engineer. More importantly, compliance with all the requirements of Antioch Fire District. Applicant plant evergreens or at least work with staff to, look at the viability or the potential of planting evergreens along Anita Street or Avenue as part of the request of the planning commission. And that we basically, the applicant, again, for the record, that the applicant proceeds with a required site plan review for the proposed maintenance building. So there's no ambiguity about that. They will have to come back for approval of that proposed maintenance building, come back before the planning commission for that phase, plus the 5th stipulation.
So I have a question. If we make the motion with the 5 stipulations, including the compliance with requirements of the Antioch Fire Protection District, and I understand that some of the buildings that are there are not in compliance.
They're separate issues.
Okay.
You can't.
Can you come up to the mic, please?
Council for Ash. With regard to what we're here for tonight, I separated out in terms of what we're here for. Phase 1 being the site plan that Glenn outlined. Phase 2, as Glenn discussed, we're going to come back for relative to the building. With regard to the questions on fire, I think those are limited to the project at hand, specifically the turning radiuses and the pathway. Other ancillary issues, which aren't here or before this board tonight, should not be a portion or considered as part of, this.
Yeah.
And I'll refer to Mr. Vaselli.
Yeah, I mean, that's reasonable. I think that's Mike's point. Mike's point is relative to this proposal and relative to this application, you have to comply with the requirements of the fire protection district and the applicable laws therein, which would, I don't know the fire code at the back of my hand, but a lot of it would go into turning radiuses and whatnot. But no, the idea of bringing in old litigation on this issue would be not germane or relevant, but they do have to comply with the fire protection code.
Okay, so we're looking for a favorable recommendation of PZB 2204. Or not. Questions, honey? One more?
No, I think my question is answered.
Okay. So it's at your choice.
I just want to say one thing. So if we say they're going to look at the trees along Anita, which I agree, I don't think they're going to fit there. I just don't want to lose the trees that they have in this plan. So if we can do an or statement on that, I would prefer.
Those are already being
those will
presented.
For sure be there.
The other ones are questionable
Okay.
whether we can have or not. We'll work with staff on that, so.
So your options right now are to approve, deny, or you could come back with additional facts as to fire and landscaping and trees. Those are your essential three options: to approve, deny, or ask them to come back with those additional facts on those two outstanding issues. I don't see any. Mike, do you agree with me? I don't see anything. That's it. You either, yeah. So, and if it's approved, it's approved with conditions. I mean, you don't have to accept the conditions, but we would.
Can
Ask
we
you.
make a stipulation that all these facts and findings have to be done before it goes to the village board to support the applicant?
If I may, I mean, we're not done. I mean, this gets us started. The
I'm
staff
trying
will,
to compromise.
Oh, I
I
understand.
don't know why.
That's what I understand. I
I
mean,
mean-
but for us to do those things before going to the village board, we still haven't shot the real topography on the site yet. And we want to get on the site to do that. We still have to do final engineering, which final engineering is working with the staff. We still have to get permits through the Army Corps to do the crossings. And, you know, and we have to do all that before we can move dirt even, you know, so.
Is your statement that you can't go out and see if the evergreens will fit and or have a phone call with the fire
No,
protection
that's-
district before we take a vote on this?
No, I'm just saying that we'd like to get this site plan approval so we can continue the process.
Right, but what we're saying is these are just two factors that are very easy to solve. Can the trees fit? Have you made a call to the fire protection district? I don't see why those two things are such an impediment that if we came back with a little bit more facts, the board may be more informed on that.
Aside for those as being a condition, I think that would be, as Mike had mentioned, we understand what the conditions are. We understand what we have to do. So we'd ask for a vote. Mike had laid out what the conditions would be and show those conditions. And for example, if the condition is that the turning radiuses, the lanes and so on and so forth must meet Antioch fire code, et cetera, that's a condition. We understand that. Glenn's the engineer, he could work with that. If the condition is we must have additional fir evergreen trees in addition to the deciduous trees that are there, as will fit, and then conferring with staff, with Mr. Garrigan, make that a condition. We understand that. And I think that's what Mike was saying. And that's what I think what Glenn was saying, and he's enthusiastic about the project as is evident. But we'd like to have a vote so that we could get to that next step. Thank you.
I'll make a motion. For the ash palette 22-04. With the stipulation, as outlined, to approve moving forward.
There a second? I'll second. Any comments?
I would just make it as a recommendation, to those of you that are here this evening for ash. I'm doing this because I think this is a good idea to move forward and try to help you guys alleviate some of the other issues you're having. But when it comes time for you to come up before us again, if these items are not done as we have stipulated, I will not be on the same boat.
Any more comments?
So right now, the third stipulation, you added the fifth stipulation, the crosswalk, but the third stipulation is still, I still am having a bit of an issue with the
Yes.
evergreen trees along Anita Avenue. Because that's the way the stipulation reads, that the applicant plants evergreen trees along Anita Avenue, providing 100% screening of the subject site.
Yeah, it's just changed that they're gonna check. to see if they fit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Roll call.
voting.
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. Welcome. Under new business, PZB 2313, consideration of site review plan for fire station number 2 located at 700 Deep Lake Road, pin 0209200025.
Yes.
Mr. Garrigan.
Yes. So for the record, this matter is coming before you this evening, for a site plan review for the Antioch Fire Protection District. As you recall, this matter came before, the Plan Commission. The applicant, is proposing a site plan for the property coming in on 700 Deep Lake Road. As you recall, last month, the applicant came before the same commission here, and at that point did ask for a variance and a site plan for a pre-engineered metal building. Not to confuse you, this is the same site. The applicant, has discussed with staff the opportunity to come back with, a alternative plan. And they are looking for a site plan approval of that alternative plan, just to kind of walk you through the process, not to confuse you, but potentially there could potentially be 2 approved site plans for a pre-engineered storage building, and also for the building that I'm going to discuss this evening for a masonry bay. Those proposed site plans would go to a bid process that the fire district would proceed with, I believe in October. And depending on the bids, it will be the determination of the fire protection district based on those actual bids of the pre-engineered building and the actual building that I'm going to discuss this evening. Depending on the bids that actually come out, the applicant would proceed with one of those 2 alternatives. So we don't know at this point what alternative they would proceed with, but there's a slight variation. This is a little unusual, but I just wanted to provide some clarification of what we're discussing this evening. So this is not deja vu. This is a slightly different proposal. Again, as you'll recall, we discussed it last month. The applicant property at 700 Deep Lake Road is station number 2. The applicant is proposing a site plan for approximately a 2,500 square foot bay, and this actual building, you can see the actual new bay would, unlike the previous pre-engineered building, which was located behind the fire station, this building would be constructed adjacent to the southern wall or southern elevation, basically facing the southern property perimeter of the proposed site. Again, for the record, this site would be approximately 2,500 square feet. There would be a single bay for storage. I think the applicant's architect outlined the need for additional storage. So this actual new proposed addition to the existing building would be a basis for storage. As you recall, this is the actual site plan. There's the proposed bay. You can see it's directly, again, as extended as part of the overall existing facade facing the south. As you can see, there's an existing drive aisle. You can see the area to the west where all the existing proposed existing bays are for the fire emergency vehicles. And this, again, there will be a doorway on the western perimeter of this proposed property. This is the actual elevations. I'm going to allow the applicant's architect to walk you through the elevations, but in sum and substance, the applicant is proposing a new addition to this building, which would match existing materials. Specifically, it would incorporate face brick and CMU block, so it would mirror the exact same materials. Obviously, the applicant's proposal does comply with the village's site plan review ordinance, so there's no requirements for any type of variance. This does comply with the village's ordinance. As a relates to photometrics or lighting, nothing else is being changed as relates to this proposed building. So generally, the proposed site plan that was submitted at the last meeting would still be generally the same. And I wanted to just also note that there was a new plan. It's the applicant's hope to actually go before the village board, subject to getting a recommendation this evening. A revised landscape plan was submitted to staff. I know one of the recommendations by the commission was to add some additional perimeter landscaping that was with the pre-engineered metal building. So the applicant did come in with a revised landscape plan. It has added extensive landscaping along the northern perimeter to screen that metal building. Now, the fact that if this does comply, this is a masonry building, will be subject to discuss whether that landscaping will be required. But this evening, we are comfortable with making a favorable recommendation with the 2 stipulations. So with that, I'll conclude my staff. The fire chief is here along with our architect.
So let me get this straight. This is an alternative to the metal building?
Exactly.
If by chance the pricing comes in properly on this versus the other, you'd make your choice based on that.
Yes, so Jason Estes, FGM Architects. Yes, so right now, we are trying to weigh all options and financial, trying to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. The outbuilding, initially, we had 2 options, whether it be the outbuilding or the addition to the current building as shown behind us. We had intended to have both of them at the last presentation to show you, and something went awry, so that's why we're here with you again tonight. So in this instance, the addition that we're talking about is complete match to the existing building. Same brick, same metal, same doors, same trim, same stone and block. So that is a complete match. The outbuilding is truly an option, and we're bidding both of them next month to be able to see where the financial options are.
Okay. Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, I have a question. You know, you're looking for the variance to see a proposed height of the building is approximately 18 feet, and sheds / garages are limited to a maximum height of 15 feet. See, I don't consider this to be a garage. You're putting an addition on the building. So I don't see where this falls into the variance requirement. I don't see why we're asking for a variance for a garage or a shed, because I don't consider this to be a garage or a shed.
Well, again, for the record, we're only seeking a site plan review for this alternative.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I don't see this as being a garage or a shed.
Right, so there's
So
no
why-
variance being requested
Well,
for this. It
That's
may
what
be a
it says
typo,
on the sheet.
maybe a typo, so that may be a typo. So there, again, for the record, this is only a site plan review, site plan for this alternative.
Okay. so
As you
that-
recall, yeah, we did approve a variance for the previous pre-engineered building. You recall there was a variance for that because it was
Yeah,
metal and
yeah,
because of
that-
height.
I agree, that was a separate
So,
building, but
yeah.
this is not, so I
So
didn't.
this is just a site plan review for the record. There's no variance, again, for the record, there's no variance being requested. This is not a public hearing. There's no variance being requested.
Oh, wait a minute here.
So it says, we move that the PZB, recommend approval of the variance for steel engineered building relief from the impervious surface
That's the old staff report. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why you're looking at that. That's an old
of
staff report.
15 feet. So this would be for the steel engineered
Yes.
So
building.
here, take a look at what we were sent.
So that's
Looks
what
like-
we're looking at.
Looks like they sent us the same one as last month.
This is the same one that was sent last.
Okay,
Right.
so,
I'm not sure why that,
This is what-
yeah, I'm not sure why that site plan was,
okay, then we don't have a report.
No,
what
I
you're
think we just
asking.
have the wrong document.
yeah,
We
so.
don't have your report then.
Yeah, because what we're looking at, Michael, has the variance.
Michael, do we have this in a hard copy that we can take a look at?
Yes,
Take a 5-minute break?
sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
No break
Absolutely.
and move to the next
We'll
item.
move to the next item. We'll come back to that. We just got to have some more paperwork so we can at least take a look at everything that's happening.
This is what we're approving.
All right, I'll request from the board, is it okay if we continue to the next item?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's
I-
do that, Mr.
all right.
McCarty.
So we're going to Move on to PZB 2314, consideration of a text amendment, form-based code restricting services and offices on Lake Street from Main Street to Spafford Street. Mr. Garrigan.
Yes, thank you. You do have this staff report form-based code, right? So this again, this is a public hearing being held pursuant to public notice in accordance with state statutes, all applicable ordinances. Again, this matter comes before you for a proposed amendment to the form-based code, commonly known as 23-14. As you recall, back in 2022, staff did come before the Planning Commission with a recommendation based on a discussion at the Village Hall. There is a general concern by a number of public officials that there was a trend of seeing prime retail and restaurant locations on Main Street being occupied by offices and services. Based on that concern, expressed concern, we came before the Planning Commission back in 2022 with a proposal to modify sections 10-10-3 plus 10-10-4 of the form-based code. The form-based code modifies that, with regards to Main Street, that maximum of 28% of the businesses on Main Street could be used for retail or services. The vast majority of those uses would have to be either retail or restaurants. That was recommended favorably by the Planning Commission back in 2022, and that was ultimately approved by the Village Board. Since the implementation, we've really had no complaints by building owners about that modifications to the form-based code. Again, based on some recent.
Can I interrupt for just a second? I believe when that was presented to us, we did not approve that.
Did not recommend approval.
We did not
we did
recommend
not.
approval.
We had
Okay.
several people in the audience who, yes,
Right.
we did not.
Okay, so for the record, that your recommendation was denial, and the board at that point did
Change
recommend
that,
approval.
yes.
That's right.
Okay, so so in case this based on the same discussions, based on the same reasoning, this matter comes before you this evening for a request to generally follow the same approach towards Lake Street, specifically on Lake Street from Main Street to Spafford. So the area along Main Street from Main Street to Spafford along Lake Street. The proposal is to again limit services and offices along that street using the same exact reasoning. There's a general belief that the way to create a vibrant downtown is to maximize the number of restaurants and services. Restaurants and retail on the street. There's a general perception that allowing offices generally mitigates and negates the potential of attracting people down to downtowns. So obviously, the philosophical question is, what are the design criteria? What types of uses creates a vibrant downtown? I've also referred to some different authors, obviously the whole concept of what we call the third place by Mr. Oldenburg, which is a famous concept about the third place, which attracts people to downtowns. Increasingly, downtowns are becoming what they call entertainment districts, where they have restaurants and niche retail. If you look at vibrant downtowns, whether it's a Naperville or whether it's a Downers Grove or a Libertyville, there is a inordinate number of restaurants and retail. Obviously, the historical patterns of our downtowns where we would have a pharmacy or a small department store, those patterns, which generally were typical from the turn of the century well into probably the early 1970s, those patterns have, obviously because of economic trends are no longer in play. We've lost our classic Main Street uses, whereas again, whether it's the pharmacy or hardware store or the small department store, those uses do not define downtowns anymore. What the key to a vibrant downtown is, Mr. Oldenburg, or if you look at Mr. Robert Gibbs, who was leading consultant in the United States from Congress on New Urbanism, with regards to what constitutes a vibrant downtown, what makes a downtown vibrant, what are the key building blocks to create a vibrant downtown. The question, philosophical question is a downtown, which is defined by law offices, hair salons, and spas, does that create a vibrant downtown? Or are you looking for more of a healthy mix of more restaurants and niche retail? I can tell you clearly the economic development direction of our economic development team here is to recruit more restaurants and more retail. It's not to recruit more law offices and more spas and more hair salons and more services or printing shops. We believe to create a vibrant downtown, to make people want to come to downtown Antioch, you want a community, a downtown that has the restaurants that you see in other vibrant downtowns. Think of any vibrant downtown in the Chicago metropolitan area, whether it's in Libertyville or a Highland Park or a Downers Grove or Naperville. What you see there is a lot of retail. You see a lot of restaurants. It attracts people to the street. So it's really a philosophical question for the planning commission of whether you're comfortable with attracting more retail or more restaurants, or are you comfortable with having prime locations being taken up by services such as survey offices and things like that. So it's really a philosophical question based on your expertise. What makes it vibrant downtown? So with that, we are, based on our village direction internally here, we are making a recommendation this evening to approve this proposed recommendation to limit services and offices on Lake Street from Main Street to Spafford Street. So with that, I'll conclude my staff report and welcome a philosophical discussion on what you believe makes up a vibrant downtown.
Mr. Ryan. Mr. Ryan.
They get done with their side discussion. I can address my questions.
I guess we'll wait.
Michael's going to get the.
Is there
clean-
public that wants to talk? Maybe we could do that.
You could open it up to the public, and Michael's going to get clean copies of the hard copies of the fire protection report. I'll copy them so you can come back and address the question.
Is there anybody who'd like to discuss anything with this from the public? Mr. Green, you gotta have something. Nothing to be sworn in for.
No.
All right. We're gonna wait. He's the subject of our discussion, so. Got it.
What?
The new thing just showed up
Oh,
on your list.
it is? Oh, here we go.
Station two. What's that? C docs. Good job.
Okay. Without
Under
the
pressure.
Without the variance.
Under pressure too.
Okay.
Still don't have, that's just a step forward. We don't even have the plans.
Yeah, we never got. it. Yeah, we can use this.
No, no.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Well,
No.
Yes.
That's fine.
When are those actually made public? When do they go? When will they be posted? Yeah. We'll probably have them posted by the end of this week on the website.
oh, they're all out on, they're all, every meeting agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at it all.
So I own property, off of 173, north, west of Brown Street, behind, or the Raymond Chevrolet.
Yes.
And, I wasn't able to attend, so I had some questions, concerns about copy yet now, but most of that will be pretty much detailed in minutes. What occurred, what,
Yes.
yes. Where it's gonna go from. what
And
is it-
And
Yes,
I would probably say if you have any other concerns besides what's going to be in the minutes and that you research, you probably just do an email to the village and then we can have that go to the next level.
The meeting is also posted on YouTube. If you wanted to watch the meeting, it is on YouTube.
Thank you.
and we'll probably be seeing you something.
Well, Michael, do you have the sketch?
Thanks for
Do you
coming.
have the sketches that?
We didn't have the drawings either of the addition
Oh, weird.
in our packet.
What drawings do?
You know, if you've got them up there, I'm not going to
I'm-
make you go
I'm
through
good.
hoops. So we'll just do what we got up there.
I mean, it's an addition, right? Like we see up there. Yes. Okay, but they were not in our packet. Right?
Right.
Okay. Just making sure.
All right, so form-based code.
Okay. Mr. Ryan, any questions on form-based code?
Thank you.
Banks, are they considered a service? Like, banks? Those are services. Okay. So we got two main banks on Lake Street.
Yes.
Okay,
And they obviously, as my staff report outlines, anything that exists is would be legally non-conforming. No businesses would be forced out. So no businesses that are currently located in our downtown. As you all know, we have Edward Jones. We have numerous services, hair salons that currently exist on Main Street with existing ordinance. Nobody is being required to vacate their property. They would be considered legally non-conforming. And the same thing, the survey office, the banks, those are all continue to be, obviously they'd be allowed to continue to operate
Yep.
legally non-conforming. We just would not allow any new banks to come in, or we would not allow any new survey offices or new, basic hair salons. That's the general principle. So, I mean, there's been some frustration that some of our recent vacancies on Lake Street have been taken up by a hair salon, have been taken up by offices, have been taken up by non-retail or non-restaurants. So again, this is more of an, not only, it's really an economic development discussion. What creates a vibrant downtown? What do you believe attracts people to a downtown? Do you want to, I mean, I think I would assume there would be a general assumption, consensus that everybody in this room wants a vibrant downtown. I think that's safe to assume. The second question is what constitutes a vibrant downtown, and how do you create a vibrant downtown?
yeah, I agree. I just was thinking of the two main banks on those, and those buildings were specifically, designed and built as banks. And try to, if,
But banks don't bring people downtown,
I agree, they don't bring people downtown, but. it's
especially
hard to
now.
re-
They did in 1930, but
Yeah,
they don't
it's
anymore.
hard to repurpose a bank building. I'm just thinking is making sure that we don't do something that says, okay, if the bank would sell or change hands or do something else like that, that we wouldn't allow another bank to come in and take over that bank because we got this restriction that's saying is you can't use that building as a bank building anymore because the previous owner left it or something like that. I'm just kind of thinking through my mind how.
I mean, I think in reality, if a state bank of the lake or Heartland Bank vacated those buildings, it would be adaptive reuse. The probability of getting a new bank to come downtown is, to be honest, would be very limited. I think the chances of doing that would be very challenging in today's world,
I'm thinking of
where
like a-
banks are closing branches left and right.
I'm thinking of a finer point though, if one bank. You gotta be careful. I'm just worried that, say the bank gets bought out by somebody else. Now, do we start considering that to be a new bank? And the old
No.
bank isn't there anymore. Now this is a new bank.
No, it's the
That's, I
same
mean, I
use.
wanna be careful. We don't,
I think we had
maybe
this
something like-
discussion. I think it brings back memories. I think we had this discussion, what constitutes, a vacancy. And we had a good discussion at the last meeting. We discussed this. Now I'm bringing back memories of our discussion. If, an office is replaced by another office, it would still be a legally non-conforming use.
Yeah.
It wouldn't terminate. Now, if it was vacant for, I think it was a year, then that legally non-conforming use would terminate.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to make sure we weren't.
That was,
ourselves in a
that
little
was,
bit of a
that
bind.
was
discussion.
the tuning key to the whole thing, that
Right.
within a year, then
Right.
now you can't use that
Correct.
use anymore.
Yep.
Once you put this language in, you're taking the property owner's rights away for what he could possibly use it for. Be cautious with that.
Well, it's what they call zoning.
No, that's great.
That's what they call zoning.
But they've
I mean,
had
we
this,
don't, we restrict
they've-
uses every day.
and we have a comprehensive plan that we work on every year. And we keep very close tabs on it. We do make our choices and changes as the comprehensive plan changes for our adaptive, environment. I get that, but I was very strong about this when we had the last
right.
discussion. I'm very strong about it now. I don't ever want to see us take away the rights of a property owner under any conditions. And it just rubs me the wrong way, 100%.
But then the challenge the staff has, then from economic development perspective, we get negative feedback when the office takes that retail space. We get negative feedback. Why did you allow that prime space to become a hair salon?
Well,
Why
we
did
also-
you allow?
We also have the opportunity to help promote the use that you may want in that space. I'd rather see a proper promotion happen, but if there's nobody coming to the table, walking up to the front door, knocking on it and saying, yeah, I'll do that, then the property owner has an opportunity to then rent it to someone that's going to fit the use for them. They're going to be able to take care of their property, pay their bills, take care of their taxes, and yet it still brings people to downtown. Hair salons bring people to downtown. Banks bring people to downtown. Offices bring people to downtown. I understand that everybody wants to have this entertainment mecca. We're Antioch, and we have done a fabulous job with our downtown. We've channeled a lot of good money to help redo our downtown and keep it looking very unique. And we were elected #1 downtown in Illinois already. I mean, the opportunity for people to make their choices based on what's available, what they want to do for a business, and how they want to present themselves to the community, they succeed or they fail based on how they do that. I don't understand limiting anybody from having an opportunity to go into business. Just me again. Anyway, Ms. Sanfilippo or Mr. Ryan, if you have anything else.
I don't have anything else right now.
Okay, it's getting late, so I just want to go over the little, where we have Hannah's and Mexican Paradise Cafe and the little strip mall there is east of Spafford Street. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I know there's a lot of service-based businesses in there, so they would be grandfathered in. But again, going back to what Mr. McCarty said, to me, if it's not sitting right there on the main street and we're tucked back into the strip mall, like my dentist, for example, who's been there forever and ever and ever, and someday he retires and he's set up to be a dentist, I would hate to restrict that use as a property owner. So I understand, of course, I want the vibrant downtown, but the way we're looking at it, a text amendment to the form-based code restricting services and offices on Lake Street. Are we restricting it to the percentages that they are at currently? And then again, like we had a healthy discussion when we were talking about this a year ago, I think it was, or last summer on Main Street, which ultimately this commission decided not to approve the text amendment because we did think it was too restricted for the property owners. So what is the restriction, that it remain the current percentages that we're looking at here? Or
It's really subject to discussion. I mean,
Okay.
my staff report was really, it's an open question.
right,
We have the 28%, currently on Main Street.
and here it's 33% for services.
It would be a compromise would be to allow 33%. So if the bank, if somebody vacates an office and is there for longer than a year, they could still have another office there if it's within the 33%. Does that make sense?
So it would be within a year in the changing of hands.
Correct.
Okay. Because I mean, yes, some of those in that, I'm just thinking of that strip mall and I'm thinking out loud here now, and of course we have the bank, like that was a bank that moved out and then now we have medical practice. So I would say that the bank, in my opinion, was better there than the medical practice, but so I didn't love that particular use in creating our vibrant downtown, but I think that if we were to approve an amendment, like we would need some additional language. And that's all I had, Mr. McCarty.
Thank you, Ms. Zanfordino. Ms. Carstensen.
I think I was the one that motioned to deny it last time. My fear more stemmed from defining services and what problems that may cause for litigation. Being that the village board approved it, I would probably be in support of it this time.
Ms. Madigan.
So I have a couple different questions and thoughts behind it. So I can tell you the reason that another bank did not go by Chase is that when I work for a bank in Mortgage. When a bank sells their property, they stipulate that another bank will go in there.
Oh.
Especially when they were being used.
Oh.
But also with that being said, is right now, based on the current environment that's out in the financial industry, especially commercial, people are walking away from their commercial buildings. So I'm really reluctant to back this because if somebody has an opportunity to rent it versus not renting it because we put a stipulation that a certain product or certain service can't go in there, we potentially could be causing that landlord to go into foreclosure or lose their property. I don't think that's fair to them either. As far as one of the other items that we discussed in length last time was the retail. We have a ton of stores downtown that are closed on Sundays and Mondays. They don't stay open late during the week.
On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Ms. Madigan. I mean, I just drove, it's true.
So to that point, even if we bring retail in, retail has to stay open past 5 o'clock, past 6 o'clock, past 7 o'clock in order to, like you want, a vibrant downtown. So, hair salons can stay open until 9 p.m. and have customers coming in and out. Nail salons, I mean, everyone visits those. Most people, I should say, most, not just women. Men get pedicures, manicures, haircuts, trim their beard, all that. So I can't, personally, I would not support this. Sorry. And why do we stop at Spafford? Because in that strip mall that you were specifically talking about, there's a State Farm agent in there, but because you stop at Spafford, you don't include Ellen Ipsen's American Family.
You have kind of a mixed use down that street past Spafford. So you have homes that are zoned to be able to run businesses out of them, I believe. And then they're set up as a home. So Ibsen Cleaners, other things. So, I mean, that's been sitting there forever at this point. A lot of other reasons for that.
Again, the whole point is that we want to revitalize, right? We want to bring in business. So if you
Limit.
You go all the way down to the Jewel, then, right? If instead of stopping at Spafford, you go further, then that does. Then you've got a Remax office. You have the old Ipsen building, cleaners.
Where do you stop?
I get it. But again, why are we putting limitations on this block? But you're allowing people who are 4 or 5 doors down that still have a service that now you are limiting within this little block.
And to staff's, input and credit for what they're trying to put together is they're saying that the downtown footprint is a little more than just Main Street. So they're saying that it continues down Lake and they want to limit more people for what they're going to do down there. That's,
And I mean, I would agree that Spafford, but and the reason why I brought up the little strip mall is, let's be honest, there's a lot of service-based businesses in there, and I don't ever see that going completely retail. just the very nature of it, with all the service-based businesses that are in there.
I mean, that's a fair point, unless it becomes more like, pop-up retail which is becoming a really hot
Right.
trend right
I
now.
mean, obviously you have, the restaurant, but this is now facing Lake Street and you have Hannah's facing Lake Street, but the majority of the other, I'm trying to think, what else is in there, but they are service-related businesses, so.
I mean, one of the trends you're seeing downtowns now, some of the problem properties, empty retail centers are becoming kind of innovative for pop-up retail, and that's becoming a very hot trend in downtowns. And again, it's really challenging. You can't really do that if the spaces are being occupied by an insurance office.
Well, if it's being occupied by an insurance office, then the space is in use and it's not sitting there vacant. So if it's sitting there vacant and they have an opportunity for a pop-up retail, we're not going to say, no, you can't do that. So we're giving them the opportunity if they want to bring that into that space. If we limit things, it still limits stuff. And that particular subject is just the hair on the back of my neck goes up. So I certainly don't support it.
So when is Tough gonna come? Right, because if you've done Main,
Or Piggly Wiggly.
and and even during the discussions on Main Street, it was brought up about Lake Street.
Well, we had that,
Oh, no,
that's a
no.
really good point. We had that discussion. How far do you want to go? Do you want to include Toft? Do you want to include Orchard? I mean, I think there was a general perception that Toft Street has so many challenges right now. I mean, it's basically mostly parking lots, to be honest. So it doesn't really make sense to limit uses on Toft Street when we don't really have retail or liner buildings. Our vision is that one day Toft Street will have such a vibrant downtown that Toft Street will be lined with liner buildings and there'll be pop retail or restaurants along Toft Street. But that's not the current conditions. It's basically a street that's generally bordered by parking lots. So it doesn't really make sense to restrict uses when there are really no uses per se on Toft Street. But Orchard Street, we discussed it. And, Orchard Street really falls off. Once you get past Toft Street, you have the Antioch Plaza, which is mostly empty. So to me, it doesn't make sense to restrict any type of uses when you have an empty plaza. Just probably looking for redevelopment opportunities. So I think Lake Street, we have a number of restaurants on Lake Street. We have the theater. We have Oliveris, which is putting a major new investment in their facade. We have another potential new restaurant opening on Lake Street. So we thought it made sense to try to limit services on Lake Street to try to provide more restaurants or more of that niche retail. That was the general philosophy behind this proposal.
Okay. Any other questions?
What about the antique storage? Is that still antique storage?
I think that'd be considered retail. I think the antique stores, the consignment shops.
Retail? Right? Don't they still have their stuff here by the diner?
Yeah. It's
It's
the
just
back
their
of it.
stuff
The
is-
back of it is.
You can go in there and shop.
Oh, yeah. There's
Oh,
a
I didn't know.
store. Yeah,
Oh,
they have,
on the
actually,
antique or sorry.
they have that stuff. They have
Some of like
things in that
the heritage antiques. Yeah, no, we consider that retail.
store.
So what are we looking for from this board on this proposal?
Well, I think you want to do a recommendation of denial, probably. Based on the input I'm getting. And we'll move it on to the village board at that point with the recommendation of denial.
Well, is that what we're
That's
doing?
up, that's up to you
It's
guys.
up to you. Somebody has to make a motion.
I mean-
If we don't make a recommendation either way, I mean, if we deny it, does that make it so that the village board has to do like a 2/3 to pass it or not?
No, it's not special. It's not special use.
Okay, I just want to make, we may not like it, but I didn't want to make it more difficult for the village board if they wanted to do something.
I
don't think
prefer to
we'll
make
have
it
difficult.
for them.
Okay.
No, I mean, because last time we recommended
Okay,
to,
I have no idea.
I don't know what the board's, I really have no idea what the board's.
but in all fairness, I mean, this commission for Main Street denied, and
That's right.
the village went ahead and the board trustees approved it, and it went forward anyway.
Yeah,
They have
I don't
that
remember.
opportunity.
That's right.
Right.
They have that opportunity.
Another question. And again, because I just don't really understand everything here. But if a business leaves a building and a similar business, say, and again, say if it's another type of service, leaves the building, another service wants to come in. Do they have to come in for a new permit or any applications or anything else like that? Or they can just move in one night and then the next day there could be a different business? in
No,
there?
well, that's actually that's a really good point. It's a good point of contention because we're actually talking about doing good licenses, certificate of occupancy and a business license. That's something that's actually in the process.
Okay,
Because right now, theoretically, if they don't do anything, if they don't do any building or they could come in and just move in, all they would need to do is get a sign permit.
Yep.
You know, if it's a restaurant, they have to register. So,
yeah,
but-
I can register, I'm just thinking of the service business again, well, service.
No,
business,
they-
somebody moves in, like that, you don't even get a chance to, you know.
Yes, and
have
that's a
any-
good point. The board's already discussed that and staff has brought in two different options, a certificate of occupancy and the business license. I think there's support for potentially both.
That or some type, I don't know, you'd like some type of notice of leaving like that, so that you know ahead of time when something's gonna become vacant, so you can try to solicit something more along the lines of what you wanna go in there, you know, ahead of time, or some warning. I mean, you can't tell somebody that says today, that's it, I'm out of business, I'm shutting the doors and I'm walking out, you know, type of thing, but
That might
you know,
be for,
so you can promote what you wanna do with those businesses rather than leaving it up to the village is kind of in the blind, okay,
But-
not knowing that one business moves out, another one moves in, you never got the opportunity to try to promote that space to somebody else that may be looking for a space there. To work with that owner to say, hey, instead of doing another service,
this might be a future discussion though for another time.
that's what I mean, I don't know how this works, that's why I thought it'd be, I could get myself informed here.
We're still look for a motion on this.
The form-based code 23-14 for the text amendment, I'm going to recommend.
You would
Denial.
Deny. You would recommend to the village board that they deny.
recommend Request.
Is there a second?
Yeah, you could say.
I second that motion. Roll call.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
That is 4-4, 1 against. Motion
Actually, I'm-
passes to deny.
I'm with Ms. Carsonson, no.
You,
I would have recommended approval with some stipulations, I think.
Then
you can change your vote, yeah, and you can change your
Yes.
vote before the meeting closes, yeah. that's
Yes,
fine.
so.
Okay.
sorry. I'm with Ms. Carsonson.
3, 4, 2 against.
Yes.
Motion still passes
Sorry.
for denial.
Thank you.
All right. We're gonna go back to our site review,
Fire.
PZB 2313, consideration for site review for fire station number 2. We have some more information up here. If we can conclude, that would be great.
So I think the architect has provided you a summary of the proposed elevations. I've walked you through the actual elevations. This proposed brick elevation, as you can see on the screen here, does comply with the village's masonry requirements. It's a single bay, approximately 2,500 square feet. It's a configuration, it's an addition to the existing building. It complies with the village's site plan review ordinance. It's brick, it's CMU block. No access or parking is being changed. The site plan is really not being altered, other than they're taking a vacant area that's landscaped right now and building a small addition. Again, as the architect outlined, this is an option. So the applicant needs to approve site plans so they can take it to a bid, and based on being fiscally responsible, try to determine which is the best option for their budget. So you have this proposal. So it's, again, a 2,500 square foot addition. With that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Architect, as you already know, is actually here. The fire chief's here to answer any questions. Again, this space required for storage.
Mr. Ryan, any questions?
No.
Ms. Sanfilippo, any questions?
No.
Ms. Carsonson, any questions?
Just appreciate this. If this goes through versus the temporary building.
It wasn't a temporary building though.
Well,
It
Well,
was a
the
Metal.
metal
Engineered.
building, pre-engineered metal. Very good.
the engineers.
Miss Manigan.
No question.
And just for the record, the applicant did, the plan is going for steel building pursuant to your request. They're coming in with a texture material. This was a modification, and they're coming with additional landscaping.
You got a sample? Well, that'd be nice to see. I love seeing samples.
To make sure that landscape plan and sample materials, so in the metal panel itself.
Very nice.
The color was not proper, but definitely in terms of. the
Very
technical
nice.
metal
That's what I
panel.
was talking about. That's what I was talking about.
I still hope this new one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree
Let me
that
need muffins or brownies.
very nice.
Donuts to help you.
With the addition.
Right.
Is-
Part needs to go on that here in front, they
Okay.
staff that out.
Then there you go. I mean, I personally, I like this a ton better. I mean, I'm a big fan of pre-engineered metal buildings, but if you do go that direction, then yes, the textured material would be great. And I understand you're trying to stay fiscally responsible, so.
Sounds like we need some more pancake breakfast. We do every year, but you need more than just one if we wanna have this option, right?
Okay,
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve PZB 23-13, consideration of a site plan review for fire station number 2. With the following stipulations: compliance with the village engineer, compliance with the Antioch Fire Department, with the 2 stipulations.
Two separate site plans.
Pin number 02-09-200-02.
this would be option 2.
Here.
Is there a second?
A second.
Roll call?
Brian?
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. Okay, last item on the agenda. PZB 2315, consideration concept plan for a 64,618 square foot assisted living facility on approximately 5.9 acres located at 991 East Illinois Route 173, adjacent to Red Wing subdivision. Is that on the west side?
Will be on the west side.
On the west side.
So again,
area.
for context, this is a concept plan for a 23-15 for a assisted living facility known as Oasis Senior Living. Again, as you well know or understand, the concept is generally to determine the use, to look at the use of the property itself, not to look at a site plan. Site plan, if there's support for this use, a site plan would come in at a later point. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the site plan because really I'm looking for a concept. Is the planning commission generally comfortable with the general concept use of a assisted living facility at this site? This site is currently R1. If you look at the R1 uses, assisted living is a special use. So if there's support for this general concept or use, the applicant would be required to come before this commission with a site plan and a special use for the assisted living facility. So conceptually, a future site plan would maybe very much reflect what you're looking at this evening. So if there's something that really jumps out at you, then maybe you can discuss it. But the first issue that has to be discussed is, would you support an assisted living facility on this property? So property, just for context, the property is located just west of the Red Wing subdivision. It's on Route 173. So Red Wing subdivision basically borders this property along the eastern perimeter. in the northern perimeters or single family homes along this proposed site's eastern boundary. So you can see right here, the full access point into Red Wing is located approximately, well, maybe a little less than a quarter of a mile. Well, not even a quarter of a mile. Probably 500, 600 feet to the east of this proposed location. This location is actually a vacant site. It's currently, there's an existing metal building, storage building on this site. It's been vacant for many, many years. It's heavily forested. The site actually has extensive forestation, extensive trees on the site. So the applicant is proposing to would potentially construct this approximately 65,000 square foot one-story assisted living facility. It would have one access point, main access point off 173. It would also have an emergency access point. As you can see, there's a stub street actually that's located within the Red Wing subdivision. So there would be a restricted access for emergency for fire vehicles. It would be restricted. You can see the actual site plan actually incorporates an access that is improved. Basically, it's a texture material with grass and pavers. So it would be more of a naturalistic design, but it would be a design to allow emergency vehicles to provide a separate access point. As you know, we try to always have two access points in any development, one for emergencies. So there's always two access points available for fire vehicles or emergency vehicles. So again, going back to the context, to the north is residential, to the west is unincorporated. It's a vacant lot. There's a vacant lot that's currently located in unincorporated Lake County to the west of this property. And to the south is Lake County Forest Reserve. So that gives you the context of the proposed property. Again, the applicant is proposing a one-story facility of approximately 6 acres. This building would be approximately, as I've already outlined, 65,000 square feet. Would incorporate main access point on 173. Generally, there would be a proposed the parking lot. The applicants proposed conceptually 37 parking spaces, including 3 handicap spaces. The village's current parking requirements does not have a line item exactly for assisted living, but using a similar analysis based on like a nursing home or other use, it would require basically 1 space per 4 beds. So obviously through a site plan review, we would have a formal analysis of the parking of this proposed concept. The architecture that you're looking at is actually a facility that this company built in Plainfield, but the proposed elevations would be very similar. Staff doesn't want to comment on the architecture. There may be some opportunities to incorporate some additional stone or brick, but I don't really want to get into architectural analysis because we're only at concept stage at this point. Stormwater, as you can see, that there's existing proposed stormwater pond on the western perimeter. And there's some potential of also incorporating some additional best management practices, BMPs. Forestation, staff does have concern that there may be an opportunity because there are residences to the west. Strike that, to the east and north, there may be some opportunity to preserve some of the existing mature trees. So if there is support for this concept, staff would like to work with the applicant to complete a tree survey and to try to make a determination if there's any quality trees that could be preserved on the site to provide some additional buffering to the residences located within the Red Wing subdivision. The use, well, based on our analysis, one of the most important issues, I think there's a general perception that there's a real need for different housing opportunities, specifically for senior housing and also for assisted living. It's something we don't have in Antioch. So I know there's a general perception that there's a need for assisted living facility. The question before the Plan Commission is this an appropriate location for a 1-story, 65,000 square foot assisted living facility on this proposed property? And with that, I'm going to conclude my staff report. I'm generally just looking for a general discussion this evening. I believe the applicant is actually here this evening. And I believe that we also have several of the owners actually on Zoom of this property. So if you have any questions for the owner or the applicant, their representatives are here this evening to provide a little more detail about this company, other facilities they have in the Chicago metropolitan area, their timing of this proposal. So really the applicant's looking for some just general input. As you know, if there is general support for this and if there's village support, this would have to come in for a full site plan review with this commission along with a special use for the assisted living facility. So with that, I'll conclude my staff report.
Mr. Garrigan, question, what zoning do we have in place presently that would be able to accept an assisted living facility of this magnitude?
Our R1 allows it as a special use, R2 allows it as a special use.
Does it fit any of our zoning without a special use?
I believe, I think my recollection is maybe commercial B2
B2?
without special use.
Uh,
But I mean, typically, it's very common to see assisted living areas in residential as a special use. They're not always on commercial corridors.
Right.
A lot of
right.
times they're incorporated into a single family neighborhood.
I agree. I agree. All right. Mr. Ryan, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, a couple questions. How many type people, how many residents would you have roughly in this size of a facility?
I'm a civil engineer.
Okay.
So I don't know the exact architectural details, but with the size of the building, I think, you're probably looking at least 70 to 80 rooms. It's probably somewhere around there, maybe a little more.
Okay.
But I'm not sure on the exact number.
Okay.
And there could be like 2 residents per room, shared rooms, or.
I'm not sure either. I think it would mostly be single rooms.
Could you give us your name, if you would, please, for the record?
Yeah, Will Hepburn from Bono Consulting.
Thank you. Do we have the owner on Zoom?
Hello.
Yes, fine.
How many, do you have an opportunity to let us know how many rooms this facility would hold?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, this is Tahir Khan. Yes, this will be a 90 unit facility. And
90.
most of it will be single 1 bedroom and studios.
And this would be a fully assisted? So not just a retirement home, but someone who needs help and on their daily lives and routines? It would be assisted?
Yes, it'll be licensed for assisted living and memory care. So about 70 would be assisted, and then the remaining would be memory care. So it's a separate wing just for memory care.
Okay. You have some of these facilities up and running right now?
Yes, in Michigan, we have about 7, 8 running. And then in Illinois, we started developing last year. So we have 3 under construction in Plainfield, Frankfurt, and Streamwood.
Mr. Ryan, any other questions?
Yeah, the only thing I would say, look at this, they're using up the lot that or the property they have, they're using up almost all of that property. There's not a lot of buffer around it. I mean, you got 63 feet on one side, 62 feet on the other side, and that they're maximizing the size of their building on that. I'm just, that's the only thing I'm looking at right now. It just seems to be put as big a building they could on that piece of property and not leaving much green space around it. So, I mean, other than that, I really don't have any comments. I assume then that there's most of the people living there are not driving. So these are people that are with assisted living that don't have vehicles because of the 1 car for 4 rooms.
Yes, most of our residents do not drive, and the reason for the size is because our interior courtyards are we have 2 large interior courtyards, so we don't for the safety of our residents.
So you have those in place to keep them in a safe environment?
Yes.
Yes, I mean, for memory care in particular, I mean, it has to be fenced. There's a lot of different things that are required.
Okay.
although the residents aren't, I mean, they do still obviously have a lot of family and
Yeah.
people coming to visit them.
Yeah,
So there will be, you know, traffic in and out of the site.
Anything else, Mr. Ryan?
Is the state of, I know this is not really our thing, but look at their entrance and exit in off of 173.
We would have to get IDOT permits.
Yeah, so I mean,
For
is
the-
that a probable thing to get an IDOT
I would think so.
onto that road, even if they,
Yes.
you know, talk about widening that to 4 lanes across there?
Yeah, everything is probable, but it does take time to work through the systems with IDOT.
Yeah, I was just wondering if, you know, again, switching that around and you come into Red Wing and that would be then the emergency one coming out on the 173 if the state's gonna require something like that.
I think that would have negative impact, you know, obviously, we will have to give the residents notice if there's support for this.
Yeah.
Other residents along within 250 feet within Red Wing to get notice, and if the main access came through that subdivision, I suspect there'll be opposition to this development versus having a separate access point on 170.
I'm just, you know, again, possible things that could put a, you know, an issue into this thing, that's all. Like, yeah, access I see is one of them. Okay, I don't have any more questions.
Ms. Sanfilippo?
So Michael, I know you said that you weren't, and if you've worked on an other assisted living, is the parking typical for like the number of units that are proposed? To me, this doesn't seem like a lot of parking for 90.
I think what we ended up with was somewhere near 25 or
30-ish,
parking spaces.
yeah.
And I think from what ownership has experienced with similar developments they've had in, you know, both Michigan and Illinois, they've kind of realized this amount of parking is what they need. Because without any of the residents having their own cars,
Yeah.
you know, not everyone is getting visited every day. But they found that about this amount of parking is sufficient for other developments.
Okay.
to have.
I mean, to me, the parking seems light, I mean, only because I have had family in facilities like this and I know how it gets on the weekend. And when you're talking 90 rooms and a Saturday or Sunday and families coming in and multiple visitors, like I would raise that.
There's 37 parking places right now.
Is there?
Yes, 37,
count 'em?
3, yes, with 3,
Okay.
3 handicap.
Okay. You know, the other concern I have as well as Mr. Ryan stated, is obviously I'm concerned about the residences that neighborhood there, and it is heavily forested, heavily wooded. And there's not much of a buffer around the building, so I can't imagine the residents there would be thrilled with this coming in. And then the only other question I had was on Elfring Lane. That's connected to Red Wing, and you said it would only be restricted. How would that be restricted, Michael? Like, it's only for emergency, would it be fenced, or what
I
are we
think
talking to
we-
restrict
I mean,
that?
That would have to be worked with the fire protection and police department, you know, there could be potentially a gate that has automatic
Okay,
opening for emergency vehicles. I think we've done that before. I know I've done it for in other developments, but again,
Okay.
that's access would only be for emergency vehicles. I think that's a proposal. Maybe when it comes before site plan, the commission and the village board will have a different perspective.
Mhm.
But right now, it's only being proposed for emergency vehicles.
Okay,
It's like any one of our situations we've had with schools and other things. You want to have 2 entrance points just in case something gets blocked.
Right.
So we did the same thing between the 2 subdivisions over there, Red Wing View and the other one to the east. We made an emergency road between those 2 subdivisions so that they can get in between
Mhm.
if something happens on 173.
Okay, that's all I had for now. Yep.
Carsonson?
Just, Michael, do you know the economic impact of these facilities? Obviously there's a need, right? There's an aging.
There's a need. I know, with regards to emergency services, there is obviously impact on, the fire district with regards to calls. I don't have the numbers, how many additional calls. I know based on experience, there's also general pickup, and we have general increase in number of emergency calls whenever you're talking about whether assisted living facilities, just because of the age aspect to the residents. So we would have to work with the fire district to make sure they're comfortable with this. But most communities, growing communities do have assisted living facilities, and while there is some impact on the fire districts, I don't think it's, basically to an extent where communities discourage them, because there is a need for them.
Yeah, I just moved my father-in-law into one. So other question is, I mean, and maybe this is hypothetical, I think we're in a sort of weird medical desert here. Would this attract potentially hospitals, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, potentially more doctors. One of our major economic development goals is to attract maybe either a emergency care facility, additional offices, more medical. I mean, that's one of our major goals. You're right, we are underserved.
Yeah.
We did work with a major medical group maybe 2 years ago. We thought they were going to open a major facility here, and they decided to move somewhere else. So we're disappointed with that. But with this type of use, we think there's more opportunities to attract more medical offices, and frankly, more senior housing opportunities. There's also a need for senior housing in the village.
Within Illinois, unfortunately, hospitals are regulated by the state. So you have to show a need, you have to prove the need, you have to support the need, and then they can still say no.
Yeah.
So anything else?
I mean, I'm in favor of the concept, right? That's all we're discussing today, so.
Ms. Madigan?
The only comment I had was, I agree, we need more facilities like this, and I think it was even brought up as part of phase 2 and the going behind Raymond's project, potentially, right? Maybe get some type of urgent care or something back there. And then is this something also, I know we had that, the traffic survey. So that's IDOT's project, right? 173 is from 41 all the way to 59, right? That's a project that IDOT's looking at currently.
Yes, if IDOT has a long-term plan to improve Route 173 from 41 all the way to 59. They had a previous plan, which they kind of abandoned. So they're now in the process of doing phase 1. We don't know the exact profile of that. They haven't completed phase 1.
Do we then, Michael, do we communicate with them of like these, like, so again, we just approved Raymond, if there's another, memory care assisted living facility that we're, moving towards bringing in, like, do we somehow relay that back to them so that they can adjust their?
Right. Well, obviously the applicant's engineer will have to work with IDOT for access permit, and they'll have to come in with their overall plan, concept. IDOT will work with the village and the engineer to basically identify what the cross section will look like. I think it's going to be at least a 4-lane profile. Whether it's a rural profile or more of an urban profile, that's not been determined yet. I think previously they had what they call a rural profile, like a grass median. I'm not sure what their new phase 1 will be on their new plans, but it's still some time out. They have not even gone through phase 1. They haven't even started phase 2, obviously, which is phase 2. There's been no acquisition of property. So
in your experience, so do they make adjustments as needed as they go through?
As our side on the engineer, when we go through engineering permitting with IDOT, they always kind of ask about the traffic impact.
Okay.
To make sure the impact of what the development is, and are they okay with this driveway going in? We've done product before where they're okay with it. Sometimes they ask for new right turns and stuff like that. I think that's more for like the car wash, but frequent access. But in this case, like as far as like a full access driveway, common traffic coming out with the residents, not driving all the time. But that's something we always do with them. They'll have to do traffic impact. whenever we decided.
Right, well, thank you. I don't have any other questions. I'm, for this.
I have a question. Is this currently a purchase property or are you the owner and, or is this on the books waiting for a preliminary approval before it closes?
It is under contract right now.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more quick question. So you got 90 rooms, you said approximately 90 rooms. What is the, peak staffing then for a 90-room facility?
So for a fully occupied building, it would be about 15 to 20 for staffing at one
That's
time.
Okay, thank you.
just about half of your parking.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, okay.
But we're
Okay,
just talking about the concept of this going
concept.
there.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even informed all their neighbors. We haven't had an
Right.
open hearing. we
So
haven't
at
had
what
any of that
point-
happen yet, So.
Michael, if we,
So this will go before the village board for a concept review. If the board supports it, then we'll work with the applicant on the required site plan review application and special use. And then it's potentially, they could theoretically come in before you could see this case with maybe before the end of the year, again, for special use and site. plan.
and that's when it would be opened up to.
Yes,
residents of-
the
right.
applicant would have to give notice to all the property owners within
Mhm.
250 feet.
Okay.
And we would post a sign and publish for the special use.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so we're looking for motion.
Yep.
Do we have anything else? I will make a motion. For PZB 2315, consideration of a concept plan for 64,618 square foot assisted living facility on approximately 5.9 acres located at 991 East Illinois Route 73, adjacent to Red Wing subdivision.
second. Okay, any comments? Discussion? All righty.
Yes.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
Yes.
all right. We have 4, 1 against, that passes. Motion to adjourn?
Yes. motion to
Second.
adjourn.
And, aye.
Yes.
Thank you very much.